I've been having fun today, doing my usual round of work, and did a little exploring. I found a website on the internet called Albert Gornication. And so, I had to stop and explore for a while. It's a pretty neat place. I recommend that you all go there and visit. www.albertgornication.com. And it's kind of interesting. So if you feel like a little laugh, whether or not you like Al Gore, there's some pretty funny stuff there. And if I found one that was, critical of George Bush, I would give you that one too, but I didn't. At least not today. I might tomorrow or some other time. Folks, this what's going on is past the ludicrous point. It is at the stage of just nothing but intense propaganda from both sides, directed solely at the Constitution for the United States of America and the vast herds of sheeple out there who are contentedly grazing their way into a democracy, not realizing it, thinking that they're already there. Wait till they find out what a democracy really is. You go back through history and look at the progression of the decline of the greatest nations or empires or whatever you want to call them in history, you'll find they went through certain stages. And the stage that always killed them was the stage of democracy, when they went into democracy and then declined into socialism and destruction of their morals and their ethical standards and their religious beliefs, and everybody just stopped producing, because to produce meant that it was just going to be taken from you and given to somebody that didn't produce. Democracies don't last long. They always disintegrate into either total chaos and destruction or some kind of dictatorship, which eventually leads to war or revolution. And we're headed in that direction. We are headed in that direction. What's taking place is absolutely incredible. Last night, I was a guest on Alan Handelman's East Coast Live, which is a Sunday night rock talk show. But he's had me on as a guest there about every 3 or 4 months ever since 1988. And he's the only one that I'll be a guest on his show, because he's a pretty decent guy. And he wants to do well. He really does. He believes in free speech. He has a whole lot of different viewpoints on his broadcast. Not like a lot of other these radio programs that they have some agenda when they invite you on. I don't take part in that. I have my own broadcast, and so I don't need to. But I'm happy to help somebody like Alan Handelman out whenever I can, give him a little boost in his ratings, because as he will tell you, I'm the most requested guest he's ever had on his show in the history of his broadcast, and he's been on for a long time. And whenever I go on his broadcast, I always make certain predictions, and they always come true. Last night, I predicted that the federal judge would throw the Republicans' lawsuit out of court. The suit that they filed this morning, as a matter of fact, or the other day, but the hearing was this morning, to stop the hand count in the state of Florida. And the reason, I told them all, I said, the reason he's going to throw it out is the federal government has no jurisdiction over the vote for the electors in the state of Florida. And the comment was, well, this is a federal election for the president. Vice President, no, you don't get it yet. It's no such thing. If you read the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all the amendments, you will not find anywhere any reference to any popular election by the citizens of the states. What the Constitution does say is that the states have the right, or I should say the state legislatures have the right to choose their electors, and they're entitled to a certain number of electors according to how many representatives and senators they have in Congress. And those electors meet at a certain date prescribed by law, by Congress, to vote for the president. So the citizens of the states are not voting for the president, have never voted for the president, never will vote for the president unless there's an amendment to the Constitution. When they think they're voting for president and vice president, they're actually voting for the electors that they believe are going to represent them, and those electors actually elect the president and vice president of the United States. They can vote for anybody they want. There is no restriction in the Constitution or in any of the amendments to the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights. There's no restriction as to who the electors can vote for. They can vote for anybody they want. They can vote for and elect president, somebody that didn't even run for the office. They could meet on December the 18th and vote for Ralph Nader and elect Ralph Nader president. And you know the way it's going, the way everybody's getting sick of this little circus going on down in Florida, they just might do that. I'm not making any prediction on that. I don't know what they're going to do because I don't know any electors. They haven't, they don't talk to me. Let's put it that way. And everybody thinks that the state of Florida is going to decide who the next president of the United States is going to be. And I'm telling you right now, Florida might surprise you because Florida, you see, according to the Constitution, the only right the states have in this election for the president is to their legislature has the right to choose the electors in any manner that they want. Most states choose to have a popular vote. They fool the people into thinking they're voting for the president and vice president when the truth is they're not voting for either one. They're voting for electors that are supposed to go and represent the state in the Electoral College. And the state hopes that the electors will vote according to the popular vote in the state. They don't have to. You see, once the electors have been appointed, they are no longer within the state jurisdiction. State has no jurisdiction over what the electors do after that point. They are now under federal jurisdiction and federal law. And the primary law is in the Constitution and in Article 12 of the amendments to the Constitution, and then there's a later amendment that gives the voters the right to vote for their electors. I think it's 22 or something like that. Don't hold me to that. But anyway, be that as it may, some states trying to fool the population of their state and the electors into thinking that the state has jurisdiction once the electors have been appointed have passed laws making it a criminal offense if the electors vote any other way than the popular vote in the state. Well, they've got a rude awakening coming if any of those electors choose not to go by that and vote their conscience, and the state prosecutes them and it goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's going to tell the state, it's just like the judge this morning told the Bush Republican team that, hey, this is not my jurisdiction. Well, the Supreme Court will then tell the state, whichever state tries to do this, tries to throw the elector in jail because of the way he voted, that, hey, that's not your jurisdiction. Once you've appointed the electors, they fall under federal jurisdiction, and they are ruled strictly by the Constitution and the United States Code. Period. That's it, Bubba. You better understand it right now. So there are some states that have these phony laws on the books that have no effect in law whatsoever because they're unconstitutional. They're outside their jurisdiction when they try to tell electors how to vote. And then you have a whole bunch of states where the electors are not required by state law, and no state has any regulation or law that tells them how to vote. Guess what, folks? Florida is one of those states. Florida is one of the states where the electors are not bound by the popular vote, or bound by the state, or bound by anything. They can vote for anybody they want. And so can any elector from any state, regardless of what state law may say. Once the electors are appointed, they are no longer under the jurisdiction or the venue of the state. They are under the jurisdiction of the federal government, under the Constitution for the United States of America and the United States Code, and their behavior is dictated by those laws from that point on. The electors might be looking at this little fiasco down in Florida with great amusement. I have no idea what they're going to do. I don't know who they're going to elect, but I'll tell you this. They don't have to elect anybody that you may think that they have to elect. And it doesn't matter whether Gore or Bush wins that silly, stupid vote down in Florida, because the vote was never for them anyway. It's for the electors that represent the state of Florida, and the electors are not bound to vote the way the people voted in the state of Florida, or anywhere else for that matter. So this could be very interesting. You know, after all this wrangling and fighting and legal battles and all this crap, one or the other might be declared the winner, and the Electoral College might kick them both out and put Ralph Nader or Pat Buchanan or somebody else in the Oval Office. Or, you know, Gore might finally win this little fiasco down in Florida, and the Electoral College might vote Bush into the Oval Office. And that's exactly the way the Founding Fathers meant for it to be. They didn't want a great mass of ignorant, uneducated people voting for the President of the United States of America. They wanted the states, the state legislatures, to choose prominent statesmen, people in their state who would do the right thing no matter what, and send them to an electoral college to elect the next president for the United States of America, so that we would not be at the mercy of some demagogue or some Hitler. See, Hitler didn't, gain power over Germany against the will of the people. He was put there by the mob, ladies and gentlemen. That's how Hitlers get in those positions. This is supposed to be a constitutional republic where we're governed by the rule of law, and where we have statesmen, supposedly, who do things in the best interest of the country, not to get reelected, not because they belong to some party, but because it's in the best interest of the nation. Now, over the years, we've done a lot of things to subvert that process. You see, the Founding Fathers were geniuses. They built this nation like a tank. And they said, the way we built this nation, and the freedom that we've given to our people, and the opportunity, and the moral values that they hold, no one from without can destroy this nation or this people or this government. If it's going to be destroyed, it can only be destroyed from within, by the very people that we built it to protect. If it's going to be torn asunder, it will be by the American people. It won't be by the French, or the Germans, or the Russians, or the Spanish, or anybody else. And so they built it with safeguards. They made the people sovereign. The individual states answered to the individual people, or the citizens of the states. And the states were sovereign to each other and to the federal government. But they created a federal government to fulfill some capacity for the mutual benefit and welfare of all of the states and all of the people, for a common protection as a nation, and to take care of all of the problems that they had with interstate and international commerce. To make sure that we had one money, not a whole bunch of different money printed by a whole bunch of different states that might have different value in different states, and people might, really get screwed going through a process like that. And certain other things. But they severely limited the federal government. And to make sure that the federal government was limited, they put in safeguards. One of those safeguards was that senators were appointed by the legislatures of the states, not voted by the people. And that was so that the states could protect their sovereignty against encroachment from the federal government. They put into place a House of Representatives elected by the people, so that there's a balance between the sovereignty of the state and the sovereignty of the people. You see, they had checks and balances for everything, to prevent the country from coming under the power of some demagogue our petty dictator, our oligarchy. They put in place an electoral college, and the people had nothing whatsoever to do with it. It was up to the legislatures of the states to figure out how to appoint the electors who would attend the electoral college on a certain date prescribed by law, that law determined by the Congress, in order to elect the President and Vice President of the United States of America. In case they tied, then the House of Representatives, representing the sovereignty of the people, would determine who the President would be, and the Senate would determine who the Vice President would be. In case that tied, the tie would be broken by guess who? The President of the Senate would break the tie. And the Senate and the President of the House of Representatives would break the tie in the House of Representatives. So, and there are other checks and balances set in place so that if the president-elect died before he was inaugurated on January the 21st, then guess what? There is a line of succession, just as if the president were to die in office in the White House after having assumed the office of president. Now, a long time ago, we did away with one of the checks and balances. We did away with the right of the state legislatures to appoint the senators of the states, and we made that a popular vote. So we destroyed the protection of the sovereignty of the states, and you've seen what's happened since then. The federal government has taken full advantage of that, and because senators are afraid that, they're not statesmen anymore, they're not going for a certain term to come back and they've done their duty. They're professional politicians and they want to get reelected. So they cater to the whim and the will and the wishes of the mob. And the federal government takes full advantage of that by encroachment upon the sovereignty of the states. It takes people like me who are strong enough and knowledgeable enough to draw a line in the sand and say, no. I know what you're doing. I caught you in the act, and I'm not going to participate. That's what the Founding Fathers meant when they said, if you want to stay free, you have to have eternal vigilance. If you want to be free, you've got to be willing to die for it. Every so often, the tree of liberty must be fertilized by the blood of tyrants and patriots. Our patriots and tyrants. So we've reached another one of those turning points now where they are maneuvering the sheeple, the vast, ignorant, unwashed masses, as Marx would have called them. Well, in this country, they're not unwashed, but they are ignorant, and they certainly are the masses. They certainly have a herd mentality. They certainly don't think for themselves. And there's this big hue and cry being raised across the country now to do away with the Electoral College so that we will truly be at the mercy of the mob in every aspect. In every aspect. And we will truly then be living in a democracy. A democracy is the rule of the majority. The majority, once they discover how powerful they are, vote them everything that they can possibly get for free. And there's nothing free. The government can give none of us anything that we didn't give to the government to begin with. And therefore, taxes go through the roof. Property is confiscated. Eventually, you reach a state of socialism. That's why both Marx and Lenin said democracy is indispensable to socialism, because the mob will lead us there. You don't need anybody to lead us there once the mob is in control. They will lead us there because they will vote themselves the largesse of the treasury whenever they can. And it will reach a point where those who do the productive work in the nation can no longer produce what is needed to carry the weight of the socialism up on their shoulders, and then private property is confiscated. Businesses are nationalized. It's where we're going, folks. We're going exactly where I've told you that we were going all this time. And this is no accident. Things have happened to me throughout my life that have set me on this course that I had no more control over than the moon does in its path around the earth every 28 days and some odd hours. I am a messenger, and you had better listen to my message. You better prepare yourselves. Because at some point, and I'm not wise enough to know exactly when that point is going to be, I can't name the date or the year, but at some point, those of us who are truly understanding of the principles and ideals which made this nation great and set the common man and woman free for the first time in the history of the world, and understand that we cannot remain free unless we are willing to die for it, will take up arms against this tyranny. We will do it. And there will be a point where it will be common knowledge amongst all of us that that is the time. No one will have to stand up and say, to arms, to arms. It will just happen. Hillary Clinton has stated publicly that her first act as a senator for the state of New York, and she has the full backing of that nasty commie Schumer, will introduce a constitutional amendment to do away with the Electoral College. The leader of the minority in the House has also called for the elimination, minority being Democrats at this time, the elimination of the Electoral College. You're hearing it discussed openly on the networks all across the nation every day and every night, almost 24 hours a day now. And now they're running polls that say that most people are sick of the Electoral College and don't want to hear about it anymore, don't want anything, they want to get rid of it. I knew this was coming, ladies and gentlemen, over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, when they first started talking about the Electoral College in reference to this election, I knew this was coming. Because never in the history of this nation during my lifetime, because I got to tell you, in the beginning of this nation, they all knew how it worked. And they went and voted for their electors. And up until 1824, that's all they did. There was no popular vote for president or vice president. And during my lifetime, none of the talking heads on any of the networks or any of the newspapers or anybody anywhere ever discussed the Electoral College. And when they started openly discussing it and talking about what it was for and what it would mean, I knew damn well that this election would be geared in a manner to cause the American people to want to give up the Electoral College. And if you will remember, that is when I began educating my listening audience as to exactly what the Electoral College is, how the President and Vice President are really elected, what that process consists of, and what it means. And oh, how you hated me for that. Because even this audience, as educated as you may be, had no idea when you went to the polls that you were not voting for the President and Vice President, but were voting for an elector. And you actually believe that at the end of Election Day, the President had been chosen, when that's a lie. The President has never been chosen in the history of this country until January the 6th, when the secret ballot of the electors is opened by the President of the Senate, and the votes are counted in the President of the Senate, in the presence of the Senate, and the new President and Vice President are announced. In the case of a tie, The election for the president goes to the House of Representatives, and the Senate elects the vice president. And oh, what letters I received. What terrible phone calls I received on the air and off the air for months after that. But now everybody knows. But most people don't understand anything about it. And what they think they know isn't really what they know at all. Because I'm still hearing all of these talking heads and all of these people and everybody who calls into C-SPAN and everywhere else and all these other talk shows, even though they have now been educated about the Electoral College, they're still making stupid asinine statements like this. Our democracy is in great danger because it is now 6 days after the presidential election has occurred and we still don't have a president. You would think that somebody in this country would have sucked up some brains. Well, I happen to know that Al Gore and George Bush both know exactly what I know. They know what I know. And now that you know it, they know what you know also. They know where jurisdiction is and where it isn't. So when George Bush and the Republican team took that suit into federal court this morning, they knew before they went in there it was going to be thrown out. This was a little play for the people to make them more disgusted with what was going on. They knew that. They knew that the election for the electors in the state of Florida and every other state in this nation is under state jurisdiction, not federal jurisdiction, and that nothing to do with state jurisdiction can ever be taken to a federal court until it has been adjudicated in the state courts. Now, they all know that because they're all lawyers. They're all attorneys. They've all served in government positions. But they didn't take it into state court because they didn't want a resolution. They wanted controversy. They wanted a nation divided. They wanted argument. They wanted anger. They wanted people pitted against each other along party lines. And that is the truth. You see, if they really wanted a resolution, they would have taken their argument, whatever it may be, into a state court. If they lost there, they would have gone to a state appeals court. If they lost there, they would have gone to the state Supreme Court. If they lost in the state Supreme Court, then and only then could they take it to a federal court based upon some constitutional issue. And it would have to be a constitutional issue because the federal government has absolutely no jurisdiction in any way, shape, or form over state elections. In the Constitution for the United States of America, your guaranteed right to vote has nothing to do with city, county, and state level. That's all decided by your state constitution. Your right to vote guaranteed to you in the Constitution for the United States of America is your right to vote for your electors or for your state legislators in order that there can be a jurisdiction that has the will of the people. It guarantees your right to vote for your representatives in the House of Representatives. And now that they have done away with the requirement that senators be appointed by state legislatures, you have the right to vote for your senator. Also, you have the right to be a mob. And if you want to get insulted because I call them the great ignorant masses, the herd of sheeple, you can do that. You have the right to get angry if you want. It's not in the Constitution, but it's a natural law. It's a natural right. But nevertheless, it's true. Most people do not choose their candidates, the people that they're going to vote for, on any logical determination whatsoever. Now, if you don't believe me, you sit down with people. Now, don't do it after the election's over and they've heard all these reasons why they should have voted for somebody or such and such or whatever. Ask them before they go vote. Who are you going to vote for? Oh, I'm voting for Joe Charlie. Oh, really? Why are you voting for Joe Charlie? Well, in the last election, I thought he looked pretty good. He was wearing a nice suit, and, he really came off as looking better than the other guy. That's the answer you'll get from most people. Or you'll get some silly thing like, well, he's promised to give the old folks drugs. Well, that's nice. Let's drug all the old folks. and let's give them the drugs. Come on, folks. And you sit and you watch this. I've been watching this since Election Day, since Tuesday. And the media is fueling this. They are fueling the fracture in America. They are causing the rent between people to become a chasm. This is all being done on purpose. Round the clock, 24 hours a day. It's all you see, it's all you hear everywhere. This nation is so fractured at this point, right now, that we'll be lucky if we even have any kind of semblance of recovery to anything even remotely near a normal state after this is all over. Is it a constitutional crisis? No, not yet. Will it become one? Yes, I imagine that it will at some point in the future, but right now it's not. It's not a constitutional crisis. What's going on in the state of Florida has nothing to do with the Constitution for the United States of America. Period. Zip, zilch, zero. It's the people in the state of Florida trying to determine who they're going to send to vote for president when the Electoral College meets on December the 18th. And it won't be over then, because that's when they meet to vote. They have to come back on the 27th and count their votes and certify them as a group. All this is done in secret. Nothing is told to the public. And then they deliver their votes sealed in an envelope, certified, to the President of the United States Senate on January 6th, and only on January 6th will anybody know who the President is of the United States of America, if there's no tie. There could still be a tie. And if there's a tie, there still will not be a President on that date. The Constitution for the United States of America is very short. It only consists of 7 articles. There's a whole bunch of amendments, but they're all short. It's very easy to read the thing. You can read the whole Constitution and all of the amendments in about an hour. Nobody does it. So they call me. And they ask me what it says. And you've heard what I do. I turn it right back on. Why are you asking me? Do you own a copy of the Constitution? Have you read it? Well, if you've read it, you know the answer. Why are you asking me? The Founding Fathers were geniuses. They argued for weeks and months over the words that they put in that document so that their meaning would be clear, and they were geniuses. And it's written, guess what, folks? This may come as a surprise to most of you, but it's written in English. Yeah, that's right. I know that a lot of you put off reading it because you thought it was written in some kind of strange, weird code and you wouldn't understand it. And you thought you'd have to hire 2 or 3 lawyers to explain it to you, but I got news for you. It's written in simple English. The meanings of the words are clear. And if you have any doubt, don't go look in a modern-day dictionary. Look in a Webster's 1824 dictionary. That's the one to get the meaning. Because the meaning of the words in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, were not determined by today's dictionary or by our modern use or meaning of words in today's modern world. The words mean what they meant when the Founding Fathers wrote that document and included them in that text. But it's still English, and you still get a copy of Webster's 1824 dictionary. No problem whatsoever. Yep. And you'd be surprised how our language has been changed since then. You would be amazed. Let's open the phones now and get your thoughts on all of this. 520-333-4578. If you have any thoughts on it. I don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're sick of it, like I am. But because I'm the host of this broadcast, I can't turn it off. I got to keep watching it, and I got to keep up to date with it, and I got to keep telling you what's going on, because that's my job. That's the job God gave me. God gave me this job. He steered me here all my life. I don't know how it happened, but here I am. My job is to wake you up, deliver a message, like I said in my book, to His people, so that they may not perish in what is to come. 520-333-4578. Good evening. You're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Cooper. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
I want to thank you, too. Recently, you signed the constitutions for our Practice Blue Beret shoot. I want to thank you personally for signing them and sending them back to us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Big success.
If that helped, then I was glad to do it.
Some people really appreciated that prize. I told them to read the Constitution, too, which most people do and some people don't, but that's how that goes, too.
Most don't. They take it home, throw it in the drawer, and they say, well, I'll read it next week.
Well, one thing I've been doing, I get those pocket Constitutions we sent you, I take them to highlight them. I teach people how to highlight them the same way I do. All the good sections is show to people and read it themselves. You walk around with that highlighted copy and people read it. It seems to be effective in getting people to think about what's going on.
Well, with some people that works.
Yeah, but one of the things I've learned from you is how to teach other people to think for themselves. It doesn't always work, but there's some people out there who just need the information. If you give them the right direction, they'll go. And people just wasting your time with.
Well, it doesn't do any good to tell somebody something if, number one, they don't want to hear it, and number two, they don't know how to think because they don't know what to do with it. So, one of my goals over all of these years has been to teach people to think, to make them think, to force them to think. And it works with some people. Other people, they're never going to learn to think. And so you have to, what I advise people to do who are in your situation is try to direct your efforts toward those people who will make the best use of it. And don't waste your time on the stupid sheeple.
That's a very good point. One of the things I've learned from you is to take our action ourselves. Like we said, we have our Practice Blue Beret shoot, and we've had other events. If people could just, you're listening audience, you take your internet site. If you don't cut the internet to go to the library, you pay for it anyway. You get the information there, take it and download it, and just make copies of it and hand it out to people to read.
Yep.
Everybody can do something. You provide the information, you provide the inspiration. All they got to do is get up on the side and get off their ass and do something.
Good luck.
Well, some people do, some people won't. I mean,
some people do. You're right. But when I say something like that, cynical or sarcastic, good luck. I'm talking about this vast herd of sheep. They're never going to be anything other than sheep. And when all hell breaks loose and the buffalo chip hits the fan, they're going to be the flotsam and jetsam upon the tides of war. They're going to be the dead bodies in the ditch, the long lines of refugees in the roads, the beggars at the crossroad. That's who they will be.
That's for sure. One of the things I try to do is let people understand there is definitely a war coming, and they better take a side, because when it gets closer it gets, the shelf that fence post is going to get they're sitting on, and they're going to do something with it, if not nothing else.
Yeah, well, we've been in a war for a long time. We are engaged in a war, and these people are waging war against us constantly. And some of us know it and have been fighting the battle, and we're out on the battlefield on the front lines, and we've taken casualties. But the real shooting hasn't started yet. But the war started a long time ago.
At that point, your listening audience can make the biggest difference when they decide to fight or flee. What do they want to do? It gets up to what do you want? What's worth it to you? I mean, we've had all the best we could ever have in the entire world, and all we got to do is stand up and keep it.
Well, that's one of the problems. They're spoiled.
Yeah, but spoiled is one thing. They're going to lose it all, though. They're just going to try to make a deal. Most people, if you would give them some oppression, you give them 3 steps, you take 1 step off of them, they'll take the 2 steps you give them toward oppression and go into slavery because they got 1 step off. They got off in the deal.
It's like a child in a new school that's been protected all his life. And he's gone to private schools. He's never been around a bully. Nobody's ever punched him in the nose. Nobody's ever tried to steal his lunch money. All of a sudden, his dad takes a dive on the stock market, and he's got to go to public school when he's 8 years old. And for the first time, he comes up against the bully. And the bully smacks him in the nose and takes his lunch money. You think that spoiled brat's going to hit that bully back?
He ain't smart enough to understand that he should.
Well, you see, most of them won't, because they have no idea what to do. They think they're going to get just absolutely stomped into the ground, and they're scared to death. And it's going to take them years to learn how to deal with that bully. And so that's what I mean by the American people are spoiled. They're spoiled rotten, and they sincerely believe that no matter how bad it gets, somebody's going to come along and save them. They won't have to lift a finger to do it, because this is America. It can't happen here.
I've heard that so many times.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's just a shame that people just don't want to get involved. You get some of the best listeners out there. I've met some of your listeners who are involved. I mean, I've met quite a few in my area out here in Pennsylvania. And a lot of the ones I've met, they listen to you like, well, think of reasons why I'm not doing anything.
Because they're never going to. They listen to me for entertainment. See, there's a portion of this audience that listens to me for entertainment. There's a portion of this audience who are dyed-in-the-wool socialists and communists who listen to me because they're masochists. They can't help themselves. I give them their nightly beating 4 nights a week.
Oh, boy, that's some pretty sick people out there.
Yeah, there are. There's lots of sick people. Lots of sick people.
Hey, one of the things you can do for me, I haven't heard you talk about this on the air, but I've heard it before. This is one of the things I personally got a big kick out of you, too. When you were in Vietnam, you were up in Syracuse, New York, giving a lecture up there, and you talked about how when you were patrol boat captain and playing by the rules. Of all the speeches you ever made, that's the one thing that I personally got most out of all the stuff.
Really? Wow, I thought probably most people would take that as being the most boring.
No, because it really defines it. You can do anything you want to as long as you play by the rules. It's a really good story. I think you listeners would probably appreciate hearing that. Yeah,
well, that's true. Well, maybe some night I will. Yeah, I had as much power as any dictator on the face of this earth after I left that pier on my patrol boat with my crew and all those weapons at our disposal, and it was up to me to decide who would live or who would die out of all of the people we came in contact during our patrol. It was my decision and my decision alone. And as long as I played by the rules, I could make those decisions and survive. If I didn't play by the rules, I would bite the dust along with whoever bit the dust at my hand. And there were ways to, but we'll do that some other night. Let's skip on to somebody else here. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
520-333-4578 is the number. Yep, there were rules. You had to stick by the rules. If you didn't stick by the rules, you could become a casualty just as easy as somebody that you decided you were going to remove from the face of the earth. And everybody who led a combat team in Vietnam had that power. Life or death over anybody and everything they came in contact with. Good evening. You're on the air.
Oh, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that the Electoral College has failed us in at least the last 2 elections because they had a duty to do, and they failed to do that duty when they seated Bill Clinton the first time?
No, I think the people of the states failed us and the Electoral College, because here's how the states do it nowadays. It's up to the Constitution says the legislature of each state can determine how the electors are chosen. They choose to have popular elections, fooling the people into thinking they're voting for president and vice president. And then if the Democratic candidate wins the popular vote in that state, the Democrat Party appoints party hacks to be the electors for that state, when the original intent of the founders would that they be statesmen, not party hacks. So it's the state legislatures, and they do this when one party has control over the other party and they decide to make it a political issue instead of do the right thing for the state and for the nation. And so statesmen are not appointed to the Electoral College. But every once in a while, a statesman rises up out of those party hacks and votes opposite of the way that he's supposed to vote. And that's happened 2 times in our history. Rutherford B. Hayes was elected president over Tilden by one electoral vote when Tilden had 251,000 popular votes over Hayes.
I see. Okay.
You see what I
know
mean?
a lot more history than I do.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be here trying to teach you if I didn't.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep, that's what's happened, folks. We've subverted ourselves. You need to go to your state legislatures and change the way your state chooses its electors. Because I'm telling you right now, if it was done properly, Bill Clinton would never have been elected to the White House. Never. Good evening, you're on the air. Good evening, you're on the air.
Mr. Cooper, this is Kevin in Nevada.
Hi.
Yes, I heard you talk about the Webster's 1824 dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried quite a few times when I had access to the internet on, Amazon and some of the others, some of the bookstores, used bookstores, and no one's heard of it.
Oh, come on. They sell it on Amazon.com.
I haven't been able to find it on there.
Well, maybe you don't know how to do a search, but it's not only there, but you can buy it in bookstores. I mean, it's in print. It's been in print for years. You can even get it on a CD.
I'll try again.
You just need to keep on looking and looking, surfing and murphing.
The proper name is Webster's 1824?
Yeah, the 1824 Webster's Dictionary.
I'll try again. Thank you very much.
The proper title is Webster's Dictionary, the English Language, 1824 edition.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You're welcome. 520-333-4578 is the number. Yep, you can get it. It's in print. It's out there. For many years, it wasn't in print until I educated people on this broadcast that they needed it, and so many people wanting it created such a demand for it that they started printing it again. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever happened with that broadcast video analyzer and the moon landing?
We're not discussing that tonight. And what happened to it is nothing. We're still working on it.
Okay,
what do you think? Well, you think I got a magic wand here? I wave it and months and years of work get done?
Sorry to bring it up, man. All right, have a good evening.
Try doing what we're doing on your own, and you'll see how time intensive it is, and we don't have all that time. 520-333-4578. See, there's a guy who wants me to do something for him, and he's not happy that it hasn't been done yet. And so he's asking about it. Where is it? I want it now. And I'm not interested in all this stuff that we're discussing tonight. I want to know about UFOs and the moon. That's what I want to know about. Good evening. You're on the air.
Hello, Bill. Do you know whether or not there has ever been a time where the people actually voted for the electors as opposed to...
Yes. Every election that's ever occurred.
How would that...
When you vote for somebody in your state, you think you're voting for Al Gore. You're not. You're voting for the Democratic Party electors.
Correct. I understand that. I guess what I wanted to clarify then was it was my kind of an idea, but I don't know whether it be speculation or not, but that the Founding Fathers might have wanted to have actual electors on the ballot for instance.
They did. Where have you been? I talked about this last night, and the night before, and about last week sometime. Up until 1824, all of the elections were for the electors. 1824, they started voting for president and vice president. They thought they were voting for president and vice president.
By actual name?
Yeah, they voted for the electors.
They did?
Yeah. The electors went to Washington, D.C. and elected the president.
Excellent. Well, that was my question. I just wondered whether we ever had an opportunity to actually vote for individuals that were electors.
Yeah, absolutely. And the electors would present themselves for election, and they would tell who they would elect and talk about why they would elect that person and so on and so forth.
Boy, I'd sure like to see that come back again.
Well, so would I, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yep, you bet. Well, that's my question. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
520-333-4578 that's the way they did it up until 1824. 1824 was the first recorded popular election across this nation in the States. And the people actually, from that time on, thought that they were electing the president and vice president. At some point they began to think that. I know they didn't think that in 1824 because they knew that nothing changed, from 1820. But at some point, the American people began to believe that they were voting for the president and vice president instead of the electors. And that's a big fallacy. 520-333-4578's the number. We still got time for a few more calls, and I know you're out there scratching your head wondering what's going on. Some of you have some questions or comments or whatever, so get on the phone right now. It's your turn. 520-333-4578. And what's Jesse Jackson doing down in Florida? I'll tell you what he's doing. He's trying to whip up a race war. Us black folks we didn't get to vote. Somebody took away our right to vote. You've been listening to him? Nobody took away their right to vote. If they screwed up the ballot, that didn't take away the right to vote. They took away their right to vote. Good evening. You're on the air.
Bill.
Yeah.
In the state of Georgia this year, they did have, under the presidential names, they did have the electors for the state. So
good.
It was very clear in the state of Georgia, anyway, at least in my voting precinct, that you were voting for electors. So,
yeah, good.
Well, they had them for Democrats and for Republicans.
Well, that's good. Most states, they don't do that. Most states, in fact, most Americans, doesn't matter what state they're in. I would even bet in the state of Georgia thought they were voting for president and vice president, even though they saw those electors' names there.
I polled a few people myself and asked them if they realized who the electors were, and they said, well, I didn't realize what all those names were. And
well, then why did you vote for them? That's what you voted for them. You saw those names there, and you're admitting to me you didn't even know what they were for. You voted for them.
That's right.
You see what I mean? Can't you hear that big noise? Hear the big noise? Feel the earth shaking? The herd is moving. The herd is restless tonight. They're moving. They're tramping the earth. I can feel the vibrations beneath my feet.
On one of the parties, one of the electors was deceased, but they went ahead and published his name anyway.
Yeah, I want to ask you guys something. If it's okay to elect a dead man to the United States Senate in the state of Missouri, what's wrong with dead people voting?
Well, that's a good point. Thank you, Bill.
I think it's an excellent point. Thanks for calling. Yeah, can you answer that, folks? If somebody can elect a dead man to take a seat in the United States Senate, elect him to the United States Senate, a dead man, what in the hell is wrong with dead people voting? Good evening, you're on the air.
Yeah, Bill, this is Gordon.
Hi, Gordon.
Yeah.
Are you alive or dead?
I'll be dead here after a little bit.
Well, go ahead.
We all go sometime. I still want to vote, though.
Well, I was just wondering, if we can elect a dead man to the United States Senate, why can't dead people vote? And if dead people can't vote, why should I take a call from a dead person? That's why I was asking.
Well,
I want to make sure that you're dead.
Call me a doctor and get it legal.
Okay.
Hey, Jesse had to vote first before he went to Florida on the butterfly ballot there in Illinois for his son.
Yep.
The same ballot that they use in Florida.
Yeah, but you've got to understand, he has the legacy of one of the crookedest Democrat families in the entire United States. It was his family that taught the rest of the Democrats in this country how to raise the dead to vote. The Daley family. Remember that?
I'm talking about Jesse Jackson.
Oh, you're talking about Jesse. I thought you were talking about old Daley, who voted up there in Cook County on a butterfly ballot.
We'll lump them all together. His son, Jesse's son, is a representative in Illinois or whatever up there. And
okay.
They use that butterfly ballot. I voted on one in Houston.
Yeah. The ballot doesn't make it. The ballot it doesn't make any difference. The ballot has nothing to do with it. Period. If you're too stupid to go in a voting booth and figure out how you're supposed to vote, you don't belong there in the first place.
I understand that.
I want
to vote down their stadiums in Houston. They want all this money for all these glorious samples to their teams and all that.
Well, sure.
They don't want all that.
Well, you got to live in Texas to understand the sports mania.
Well,
I got to tell you something. If you live in a small Texas town and you don't show up on the night that the high school football team is playing the championship with some football team from somewhere else, ain't nobody ever going to talk to you again.
That is God's truth on that.
Yep, that's the way it is in the state of Texas.
I'll let you go. You get somebody else in. It's good talking to you, Bill.
We're out of time. Thanks for calling.
We'll see, Bill.
That's it, folks. Another episode of the Hour of the Time, and you have just noticed, I hope, an increase in the number of brain cells between your ears. If you haven't, you better stop listening to this broadcast because it's not benefiting you in the least. Good night. God bless each and every single one of you. Good night, Annie Pooh and Allison. I love you. And I miss you, so much. I remember somebody called, and boy, they took great exception to the fact that it said, I forget which selection it is, but one of them says that, Clinton hits us with a huge tax hike. Well, that's what he did. For those of you who aren't aware of it, during the Clinton administration, they raised taxes at one time more than at any other time in the history of this country. And they keep talking about this great surplus. Where is it? I haven't seen any surplus. And then people call and say, well, we're not the greatest debtor nation on earth. I beg your pardon. We are. They haven't paid down the debt. They have not paid down the debt. We owe trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And the interest on the money that we owe is more than all the taxes that the IRS is able to unlawfully and unconstitutionally gather each year. It's absolutely impossible to pay it down at this point. And they say, well, we've balanced the budget. You know what balancing the budget means, folks? It means now that they've passed the biggest tax hike in history during the Clinton administration, they're bringing in more money than ever before in history. What it means is that, here's what balancing the budget means. It means whatever Congress votes during the year to allocate money to, there's enough money to pay for it without going over. If I could give myself raises in order to meet whatever increases in expenses that I wanted to incur, I could do the same. I could balance the budget also. Anybody can do that. You just don't spend more than what you've got. And if you don't have that much, then you make sure that you get more money coming in to be able to take care of that. And balancing the budget has nothing to do with the trade deficit, which is unbelievable. It has absolutely nothing to do with the debt or the interest that we have to pay on the national debt. Period. It's really weird to me how Americans are so ignorant on all of the things that they're supposed to know about but don't, and pretend that they do. And I don't really see how that happens, but it does happen nevertheless. Today in the state of Florida, two things happened, both of which I had said would happen, and they did. They took a suit to court to seek an injunction against the Secretary of State of the state of Florida to be able to continue the hand count beyond the deadline. And the Secretary of State, Mrs. Harris of Florida, said no. The law says there's a deadline, 5 p.m. today, November the 14th. And all votes from all counties have to be certified and into me by that deadline, or they will not be counted. And so all the counties certified their votes and got them into the Secretary of State of the state of Florida before 5 p.m. today. And she declared that as of that time, George Bush is ahead by 300 votes. And unless the counties that want to perform a hand count or keep going with this ridiculous charade can send her a letter by 2 p.m. tomorrow justifying their actions, she's going to certify the state vote and then add the absentee ballots that will be counted on Friday and declare a winner for the state of Florida, whether it's Bush or Gore, and that depends upon the absentee ballots, because I'm going to tell you right now, unless somebody from one of those counties can prove that the machines were broken or that there was fraud, she's not going to accept any of their reasons, because there's no reason to be doing what they're doing. People voted on Tuesday, and then they recounted all the votes. And now they've, recounted some of those votes again, and now they want to recount them even again. And in the middle of recounts, they changed the parameters for counting them. The whole thing has gone beyond ridiculous, beyond funny, beyond irritating, beyond stupid. It's a circus. It's a huge charade. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And nobody else in the whole nation has any business butting in on what the people in the state of Florida are doing. It's up to them, and they have their laws, and they have their officials, and they have their, way of doing things, and that's their vote for their electors. It is not deciding the President of the United States. It's deciding who's going to be their electors. And the electors may surprise everybody, folks, because they don't have to vote the popular count. None of them do. There are some states that pretend to require them to and threaten to, arrest them and try them and throw them in prison if they don't vote the way the popular vote went in that state. But they don't have the jurisdiction or the authority to do that. And then there's a lot of states that don't have any requirements whatsoever, and the electors, according to the state, are free to do what they want. And the state has nothing to say about it anyway, so they're always free to say and do what they want anyway, and vote any way that they want. So the electors could throw a big curveball into this, and nobody is going to know who the president is until January the 6th. And that's the truth. And nobody has ever known who the president is going to be until January the 6th, when the president of the Senate opens the secret ballots of the Electoral College and makes sure that they were certified, and that then he counts the vote. And twice in our history, the Electoral College has gone against the popular vote and elected somebody that the people didn't call for. And the people are so silly. They think that they're actually voting for the president and vice president. They're not. I've heard all day long, this woman, Mrs. Harris, the Secretary of State for the state of Florida, has the weight of the world on her shoulders, and the next president of the United States depends upon her decision. Bullshit. It depends upon the election of the Electoral College. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may call you that. I'm just sick to death of this. And I'm so tired of watching this. I have watched more liars trooped across the television screen today than I think I've ever even imagined existed in my entire life. Liar after 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 liar. And then you see these they're fake intellectuals is what they are. They're talking heads. They belong to the networks. And because somebody has hired them to sit in front of a television camera and read from a teleprompter, somehow they have got it in their head that they know everything in the world about everything that there is to know everywhere and anywhere. And all day long they make these asinine, stupid comments and draw these conclusions from out of left field that have nothing to do with anything. And they ask question after question after question, and they troop liar after liar after liar to answer the question after question after question. And when they run out of questions that make any sense, they start asking questions that don't make any sense. And then when they run out of questions that don't make any sense, they ask questions that had to come, who knows where the hell they came from. But they don't even not make any sense. They're just absolutely stupid. And then they draw on every possible scenario even scenarios that are so wild and so way out that they couldn't possibly even play into any of this. And they discuss these scenarios back and forth endlessly, as if anybody gives a damn. Who the hell are they talking to? The only reason I listen is I know when I open the phones, you people are going to be talking about this stuff, and I got to know what the hell they're talking about because I'm the host of the Hour of the Time. And somebody has set me up on a pedestal and said I'm supposed to know everything. I don't. And unlike all those talking heads, I admit it. But at least I've got to know what you're talking about, so I can't say, well, I never heard of that. So I'm forced to sit there and listen to this inane, stupid, asinine, idiotic, embarrassing lie after lie after lie after, oh my God, save me from this. I'll tell you, folks, after this, I wouldn't travel to a foreign country now. If you paid for my trip and all of my accommodations and anything I wanted to do and anything I wanted to eat and any place I wanted to go, I wouldn't travel to a foreign country. I wouldn't be able to look anybody in the face. I would be so embarrassed. If anybody found out that I was an American. A nation of fools. That's what we must look like to the rest of the world. Absolutely unbelievable. And this poor woman, Mrs. Harris, who's trying to do her job, she is a Republican. She did help campaign for George Bush and for Jeb Bush, the governor of Florida. But she hasn't done anything in her office as Secretary of State for the state of Florida outside of what's required by law. And she hasn't gone out of her way to do anything other than what's required by law. And she has been attacked like I have never seen anybody attacked in my life just because she's obeying the law that dictates what she has to do in her office. And the judge in Florida this morning threw out the suit calling for an injunction on her deadline, which is required by law, at 5 p.m. today. And the judge gave her complete and full discretion in deciding what vote, if any, she's going to accept after 5 p.m. And so she held a press conference this evening saying that she is requiring all of the counties that want to continue with the hand count or recount their votes in whatever manner that they're going to do it to justify it to her in a letter submitted to her by 2 p.m. tomorrow. And if they can't justify it, which means they have to prove that the machines were broken, or they have to prove vote fraud. If they can't do that, then they are not justified in recounting beyond the count that's already been done. Because that's what the law says. You have to be justified in what you're doing. And that means the machines were broken or there was vote fraud. And if you can't prove either one of those, then what are you doing? Oh, well, we were confused on our ballot. Well, dearie, get unconfused. It happens all across the United States of America. They threw out 20,000 ballots in West Palm Beach, Florida. Oh, whoop-de-doo. They threw out 120,000 ballots for the same reason in Cook County, Illinois. And a whole bunch of other counties all across this nation. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, but I'm special. I'm a Holocaust survivor. Well, You know, I truly sympathize with you if you're a Holocaust survivor, but it has absolutely nothing to do with voting for the President of the United States of America in this election. Period. Period. And I'm tired of this. I have special privileges because I'm a victim. Bullshit. Because that's what it is. Bullshit. And I don't care if it's women who claim that they don't make enough in the workplace so they should be able to cast their ballot again. Or I'm black and my ancestors were slaves and therefore, since I screwed up my ballot, I should be able to vote again. I don't care what the victimization is. It has nothing to do with voting for the President of the United States in this election. And in the state of Florida, where you're not voting for the President or Vice President anyway, it has absolutely nothing to do with voting for the electors who will vote for the President and the Vice President on December the 18th. Oh, and I know I'm going to get some calls and some letters. Well, my ancestors were slaves, and I take exception to the way you talk about blacks on your radio program saying that we don't have the right to vote again. Take a long hike off a short pier, buddy, because I really don't care what you think at all. I care about reason. I care about the law. I care about truth. I care about justice. I care about all those things. I'm not for Bush. I'm not for Gore. But I am for truth. I am for doing what's right. I am for reason. I am for justice. I'm not for any of this other crap that all these socialists want to shove down our throats. And I am so sick of hearing the word democracy. You can't watch television or listen to radio for 3 seconds without hearing that word anymore. And who is this Brian guy on BSNBC? My God. Somebody told him he was pretty. And he thinks that means I'm the brain of the world. Well, he's not. He's making a fool of himself. They all are. They all are. It is it's beyond my understanding is what it is. It's beyond anything that I ever dreamed could ever happen in this country. And the media is responsible for all of this, from the beginning right up to the end. This whole thing was started by the media. It was fueled by the media. It's carried by the media. It's pumped up by the media. And people are told what to think by the media. And there's a poll every 5 minutes. There's a different poll. And it's all about the will of the people. Not in a constitutional republic. It's about the rule of law. It's about the law, not the will of the people. Never was. If I got anything to do with it, it's never going to be. Because once you start getting that will of the people, you start throwing the law out the window. And that's exactly what happens when you start getting that rule of the people. And everything's going to be decided by poll or by vote. And once that happens, boy, if you're not on the side of the majority, you're in danger. You're in danger. It's like in Nazi Germany. If you weren't a Nazi, you were in danger. If you weren't an Aryan, you were in danger. Let's open the phones. 520-333-4578 is the number. We'll take your calls for the rest of the hour. I'll tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. They're all going to send in their little letter trying to justify whatever they're trying to justify doing beyond the cutoff time today. And the Secretary of State is going to reject all of those reasons. She's going to certify the votes. She's going to wait until Friday and count the absentee ballots. And then she's going to announce a winner for the state of Florida for the electors who are appointed by the state of Florida, who will then go meet on December the 18th and vote for President and Vice President of the United States of America. Good evening, you're on the air.
Bill, I just want to chime in and agree with you about saying, if I hear the word democracy one more time, I just think I'm just going to explode.
That is so sickening. And it's just repeated endlessly, and everybody who troops before the camera has to say it at least 4 or 5 times. Or they're not a good little socialist, you know?
That's right. But anyway, that's all I had. I just enjoyed the show.
Okay.
Thanks once again. We'll see you.
Thanks for calling. 520, excuse me, folks. I'm having a little problem with my voice tonight. 520-333-4578 is the number. We're going to take your calls for the rest of the hour. Let's just make it open topic. We'll talk about anything. Because I really don't care what we talk about tonight. I'm up to here with that election stuff. And if you want to talk about that, we'll talk about it. If you want to talk about something else, we'll talk about something else. But we'll just open the topic, and we won't narrow it down to any one thing tonight. 520-333-4578 is the number. We'll be taking your calls for the rest of the hour. I keep saying we. I'll be taking your calls for the rest of the hour. And well, I guess it is we. Crusher's here with me. And he might decide to, chime in his 2 bits if he gets the urge. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hey, Bill, it's Bob from Tennessee.
Hi, Bob.
Just calling in. I got a cold, too, so pardon my voice. But appreciate what you're doing. I listened to your show last night. Found it very informative and encouraging. I just wanted to call tonight and let you know how much I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
You're putting the word out. I saw on CNN they wanted to run a bit about what the people in England thought about us. I thought that was quite ridiculous. That was pretty negative comments over there.
Well, do you blame them?
Well, no.
I mean, I'm watching it, and I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of the people in this country.
You know what occurred to me this afternoon was if we had a leader worth anything as president, he would be on the air today telling people, or even before today, telling people that everything is by order, and he would explain the constitutional process and reassure the American people and the world.
Yeah, but they don't want anybody to know what the real constitutional process is.
That's exactly right.
That's why nobody's doing that. And, it's questionable whether Bill Clinton really knows that or not.
Well, I've heard a lot of people quote the Constitution, or some of it, and they're in error most of the time anyway. Yeah,
they are in error, and some of them just blatantly lie about what the Constitution says. They lie about what the judges said. For instance, all day today I heard people say, well, the federal court judge threw out the Bush request for an injunction against the hand counts and told them that the hand counts had to go ahead. And that's a lie. The judge threw it out of court because the federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over an election in the state of Florida, and told them to take it to the state court. And then he made some personal comments of his own personal beliefs. And those are not judgments. Those are not court orders. They have nothing to do with it. The thing was thrown out. And so you see all these liars trooping that. And then you see all these other liars talking about the judge's rule this morning that the Secretary of State has full discretion, and that everybody has to have their votes certified and in by 5 o'clock today. And you hear him say that the judge told her that she couldn't have discretion, that she's got to consider all of these votes and all this other kind of stuff. And he didn't say that at all.
Listen, I think they just think that people are used to not thinking for themselves. They'll just believe whatever they're told that they heard.
Well, I don't think they think that. I think they know that. And I think it's absolutely true, because that's exactly the way most people behave.
Well, that's true.
They don't think for themselves. They listen to what somebody tells them, and they'll change their mind 5 times a minute if they hear 5 different people telling them to think 5 different things that even are different, that even oppose each other.
Well, there are a few of us around that want to think for ourselves, and I appreciate your encouragement. You're doing a good job.
Well, I appreciate all of you who are around who do think for yourselves.
You got a good website, too. I really enjoy that.
Well, thank you.
Okay, have a nice night.
Thanks for calling. 520-333-4578. Yeah, we do have a good website. I personally think it's the best website that there is. and it's WilliamCooper.com. So if you haven't been there, go there now. WilliamCooper.com. Go there. Check it out. Good evening. You're on the air.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes, sir.
I'm Greg, the useless heater from Region 6.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good. Couple of things. I'm having a hard time hearing you. I wish I could boost the volume on my headset somehow, but couple of things, if you would. I want to thank you. Back September 98, you allowed me to come visit your family. I was probably one of the last few people that were. I met Doyle, you, your lovely wife Annie, and the children. And I want to thank you for letting me come up to meet you and shake your hand. Much appreciated.
Yep, you're welcome. Nobody does that anymore if I don't know them personally and haven't known them for a long, long time.
And I don't blame you in the least. Mr. Cooper, there's an issue being tossed around the nation right now we're faced with, and that's this Indianapolis Baptist Temple. Would you consider weighing in on that subject?
What can I say?
I'd be interested in hearing your...
It's very simple. The federal government has no right to tax a church.
I'm well aware of that. What I was...
And they have no right to confiscate anybody's property without just compensation. Read the Constitution. It's all there.
Oh, I'm absolutely certain everything.
Whatever I'm going to say is what you're going to read in the Constitution.
Well, what I was referring to was the issue of should the American people stand up or no? I mean,
I can't tell you that. I can tell you that if it was my church and they came to confiscate my church, to seize the property of my church, I would meet them on the steps of that church with a gun.
Now, granted, the pastor does not want that to happen, but should the American people...
It's not up to the pastor. It's up to the American people, and it's not up to me. It's up to those people who belong to that church, who care about that church, to make a decision whether they're going to give up one more of their freedoms in that town and give up their church and their right to worship at the altar of their choice. That's up to them. It's not up to me. I've told you what I would do if it were my church.
Granted. So the American people, we should just leave it to them. Leave it to them.
Yes, it has to be up to them because you still don't get the big picture.
Oh, I'm well aware of
it. If you're not willing to die for freedom, you can't have it. And you can't force freedom down somebody's throat. If they're not willing to stand up for their rights, if they're not willing to stand up for their church, if they're not willing to stand up for their family and their property, they deserve what they get. And what they're going to get is tyranny.
What I'm referring to also is the fact that Bobo Grits is out there. I don't know if he's up to stirring up the crowd or what he's doing, but... just wanted to hear.
What he's going to do is pretend to be for the people, and at the last minute he'll turn it all over to the feds like he always has.
You're correct. I thank you.
He's a liar. He's a liar. He's a traitor. He's the scum of the earth. I've said it on the air many times, and I'll continue to say it.
I've heard you.
He claimed to be going up to help Randy Weaver. He wasn't helping Randy Weaver. He was called not by Randy Weaver. He didn't go as a volunteer. He was called by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to come and get Randy Weaver out of that cabin because they found themselves in an embarrassing situation. And every time he went up there to talk to Randy Weaver, he was wearing a wire. And he did his job really well, didn't he?
Well, he's out there stirring things up I don't know, and I just...
Yeah, he's not stirring up anything.
I value your opinion, and I appreciate what you're doing for our country.
He's not stirring anything up. He's pretending to stir things up. 520-333-4578 is the number, and thank you for calling. Now, Bobo Grits? Hey, if they ever come and set siege to me, I hope that they send Bobo Grits up here to try to talk me out. It'll be the last day he ever walks on the face of this earth, I guarantee you. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hello, Mr. Cooper. I just want to say how amazed I was that all these people on TV having these signs talking about democracy, and they obviously haven't read the Federalist number 10, or if they would read...
They haven't read anything. They listen to Jesse Jackson and Bill Clinton and Al Gore and Hillary, and they read, if they read anything, they read Karl Marx.
Yeah, and it's amazing how it seems these intellectuals or so-called intellectuals gravitate toward socialism.
Yeah, isn't that strange? And they don't even study. They're supposed to be so smart, but they don't study history.
Right.
Because the first thing that socialist communists do when they get in power is to execute all the intellectuals.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing that they always do. They imprison them or execute them or send them to some slave labor camp, or they disappear in the Gulag Archipelago or something. But they're not around anymore.
Yeah. So, and there's something called the Records of the Federal Convention of 1787, edited by Max Farrand or Farrand.
Mm-hmm.
And over they talk about the ills of democracy.
That's right.
Providing checks against the democracy.
That's exactly right. The Founding Fathers were geniuses. And for us to have been so lucky to have had so many geniuses to congregate in one place to build this country, there had to be the hand of providence behind that. That's just beyond any probability of occurring anywhere, and it's never occurred anywhere on this earth or in history ever before, or since, for that matter.
So anyway, that's all I would say.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
520-333-4578 is the number. This is the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper, the most dangerous radio host in America. And if you've been listening, you know why. Good evening. You're on the air.
Hi, Mr. Cooper. I'm sorry about the radio a while ago.
It's okay. Just don't do it again.
Okay, I won't. I was going to ask you if you knew anything about Oregon. You know, they were recounting too in some other states, but I haven't heard anything.
Or in the state of Oregon, supposedly Gore's ahead, but they haven't certified their votes and they haven't stopped counting their votes. They're still counting. So there's nothing official in the state of Oregon. There's nothing official in the state of New Mexico. There may not be anything official in some of these other states because I got to tell you, no state has finished counting their absentee ballots.
Right.
And so, even the election for the electors is not over, even though in a lot of states Gore may be ahead or Bush may be ahead. Those absentee ballots could change everything. And they don't stop counting them until whatever the state law is for those particular states. In Florida, it's this Friday.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't sure about all the other states because
nobody is, because it's different in each state because they have their own laws for their own elections. It's not a federal election.
Right.
All of these are individual state elections to choose their electors who will then go and vote for president and vice president.
Right, I understand that, but I just didn't know about the other states because it's not on the news. They're concentrating on Florida.
Well, there's 50 states, so it's not going to be on the news. If you're curious about that, you need to call whatever state you're curious about and ask them what the deadline is for counting their absentee ballots.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
And thanks for having the courage to call back. 520-333-4578 is the number. Taking your calls for the rest of the hour. You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper, the most dangerous radio host in America, according to William Jefferson Clinton. I guess this broadcast really hurt him quite a bit. He doesn't like me. 520-333-4578. Topic is open. You can talk about anything you want to. Good evening. You're on the air.
Hi, Mr. Cooper. This is Pete from Martinsville, Virginia. I was calling in reference to that man that was calling about Mr. Clinton trying to stay in office. It's not him that's trying to stay in office. It's Gore, if you think about it. He's trying to recount and recount and recount and scrutinize things until he gets the count right in his favor, right?
Well, that's right, yeah. And if Gore gets in the White House, it's no different than Clinton staying in the White House, to tell you the truth.
Oh, true.
Only Gore, believe me, folks, and if you don't believe this, read Al Gore's book, the book that he wrote. Read it. Al Gore is much more dangerous than Bill Clinton ever thought of being.
Well, I've seen that over the last couple of weeks. But on the flip side, you also got the Bush boys trying to raise the dead on Election Day only and trying to stuff the boxes in Florida.
Well, I don't know about that. Nobody has proven that any of that has happened by either one of the parties. So where do you get that information?
Well, considering they keep recounting and...
Bush isn't recounting. It's Gore that's recounting.
Oh, yeah, true. Well, just want to put that little tidbit out.
Okay.
Okay, good night.
Thanks for calling. Now, we know that the dead is raised from the cemeteries all across the country every election day, but nobody's proven that that's happened in Florida. I'll bet that it has. But nobody's proven it, so nobody can say that I know that Bush or Gore or anybody raised the dead in Florida, because there's no proof. 520-333-4578 is the number. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, given the apparent and what I think is very obvious NASA moon scam, do you think we can look forward to a red planet scam?
Oh, absolutely. If they can't get to the moon, how the hell are they going to get to Mars?
But you think they'll actually go through the trouble of indoctrinating the public and convincing them?
Well, I think they've already started with this face on Mars crap.
Have you seen the movie Mission to Mars?
Yeah.
Boy, was that a shock. I couldn't believe that they took Hoagland's preposterous theory, made a film out of it.
Yeah, well, you can't blame some scriptwriter in Hollywood for taking advantage of a good thing if it'll bring people to the box office and make him a couple $100,000 for that script or whatever he gets paid.
I suppose you're right about that.
That's okay. It's up to the people to understand that it's fiction.
But
you keep seeing these things over and over and over and over and over again for years and years and years, and you keep hearing people say there's a face on Mars and there's a city on Mars and blah, 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 and pretty soon people believe it.
I love this thing NASA does where they are technical advisors to a film about a face on Mars, but then they deny Hoagland's claim.
Yeah.
You love that?
Well, how can they be a technical advisor to something that they deny exists? I mean,
exactly.
what is there technical about it to advise?
Exactly. It's really wonderful. Well, I'm just afraid that it's going to cost our children trillions instead of $30 million.
Well, yeah, but you read the report from Iron Mountain and you'll see what it's all about.
It'll be a brand new pyramid program, really.
Yeah, you got it. It's a welfare program.
God bless her.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
520-333-4578 is the number. That was a good subject to talk about. Maybe one of these nights we'll just open it up and talk about NASA. Just frost them a little bit. They need frosting. NASA's the biggest scam on the face of this earth. Good evening. You're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Cooper. Calling from Pennsylvania.
How are you doing?
He said, gentleman just mentioned the report from Iron Mountain. Where can we find that?
It's not up to me to find your books. You have to find it.
I
know where my copy is. It's in my library.
Good for you. Hey, listen, Al Gore probably is very upset because he doesn't want to have to move too far away. Remember, here's a man who hasn't paid any rent as far as owning any property, put it this way, any taxes on his property, and now all of a sudden will have to pay tax.
Hey, he has to go back to a precinct in a county, in a state, none of which voted for him.
You're absolutely right. Okay, I thought maybe you had some sources for report on Iron Mountain.
No.
Okay, I'll keep trying. Thank you.
You got to remember, folks, I live up here in the mountains of Arizona. There's a couple of bookstores. They're little bookstores. But I guarantee you, ain't going to be no copies of the report from Iron Mountain in either one of them, unless somebody died and they had one and they bought all the books at their estate sale and just happened to get one by luck. So you all live in the big cities where you have absolute unrestricted resources for those kinds of things. Why are you calling me, asking me where you can get them? Good evening. You're on the air.
Hey, Bill. I know why the Democrats are in such a tizzy about the vote count in Florida.
Yeah, I do too. They lost. That's why they're in such a tizzy.
Well, what it is if they had that many elderly people get confused and accidentally vote for Buchanan instead of Gore, imagine how confused the dead ones got. They probably voted for Bush by mistake.
Well, you know what? That could be true because the dead ones, they've got worms crawling around inside their skull, and I could see how they could really get confused.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we're electing dead senators, there's dead people voting.
I wouldn't doubt it. Listen, I want to put a vote in for doing a NASA show sometime. I'd really like to hear that.
Okay. We'll do it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Yeah, we will definitely do a NASA show. 520-333-4578 is the number. Good evening. You're on the air.
Hey, Cooper.
Yeah.
Sam in Maryland.
Hi, Sam.
Report from Iron Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
They published a new edition about 2 years ago. The guy should be able to get from Barnes & Noble, no problem.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Good night.
Thanks. But why should you be telling it? I mean, they should know. I bet he hasn't even been to a bookstore to try and see if it's in print. Every bookstore has a computer, and they can tell you if a book's in print or not in print. If it's in print, they can order it for you. If not, they can refer you to a good book search service, and they'll find it for you for a fee. That's it, folks. We're out of time. Good night. God bless each and every single one of you. And good night, Annie Poon Allison. I love you.